was that we now know that free energy is real. We know that because it was used to destroy the World Trade Center. Because John Hutchison's effect, one of the side effects of it is it releases enormous quantities of energy. He uses up to only about 4 kilowatts of power, between 75 watts and 4 kilowatts of power. 4 kilowatts of power is about 2 boiling kettles worth. You know, so that's the input power.
That's what he's giving.
That's what he puts into his equipment. It melts metal, bends metal in half. He's been around for 30 years. He's been investigated by Los Alamos National Laboratories. Steve Jones is also connected with them. He's been investigated by a company called SAIC, which is Science Applications International Corporation, who also helped NIST write their reports. So we have the connection. We have the connection.
What does John Hutchison make about the theory then, that they might have used his technology?
Well, this is just it. We've approached a number of people who've been in the cold fusion field, and we have described how they've got 10-foot pole. I can't even say it. 10-foot pole syndrome. They won't touch it. We mentioned 9/11. We mentioned cold fusion. Sorry, not interested. Don't want to speak to you. The exception was, thankfully, John Hutchison. We got in touch with him in, I think it was probably late November, mid-November 2007. We sent in the pictures, or Judy sent in the pictures. I say we, I was sort of working on the sidelines with her, throwing in the odd idea now and again, you know. And he started to wake up, and he realised that when we sent the bent beams, he thought, oh yeah, that does look similar to the bent beams that I've had in my experiments. And so he started looking at the data more, and he actually did come on the radio with us in January. So we did 2 shows in Washington, two 1-hour shows. One was on a Monday, and one was on a Friday. Judy and I did the Monday, and John came on with us on the Friday to sort of talk through things. And he agreed that for example, the Bankers Trust building that I've described, he agreed that it got some type of infection, and he had seen some of the ongoing effects in his own metal samples. So he didn't think that what was going on there was too promising. He thought he was quite concerned about it. So he was up for it. And actually what's now happened is the Ketan case, where Dr. Wood has said to NIST, you produce fraudulent reports and I'm going to sue your contractors for fraud, that has been ongoing. And as part of that process, the defendants have had to try and dismiss the case. They want the case dismissed because they're trying to argue, obviously, that the hijackers did it. ARA have tried to argue that the hijackers did it, etc. To counter that, we have now got John Hutchison to submit a court affidavit that everything that he says happened to him has happened to him, and that's now been filed with the court in the Southern District of New York in relation to this case. Right. So in other words, we're challenging the defendants to say, you did not say how this was done and what really happened. You covered it up. We know how it was done, or we know how it wasn't done, and we know that this is related to how it was done, even if we don't know all the details. So that is literally where we are now. So this court affidavit was filed, I suppose a couple of weeks ago now, and I actually helped John Hutchison write this out. We spent a couple of hours on the phone together, because Judy had got to know him by this point a bit better, and so we were able to get in close contact with him to do this. So really what's on the table with this court case now is 2 things. 9/11 is on trial, potentially, and free energy is on trial too. Yeah. So I think it's actually one of the most important things that's going on in the world at the moment, to be honest with you. Obviously how it unfolds from this point I really don't know, because we just don't know how the court system would be in terms of the corruption, the manipulation. Obviously it's been overseen by a judge, right. So how will he react to all of this? He may just throw his hands in the air and say, oh well, I know it was 19 hijackers, what did it? So, who knows? As regards the Scholars Group, as I say, I'd sort of joined with this half, which was being run by Jim Fetzer, who's done a lot of work on the Kennedy assassination. And his reaction to the Hutchison Effect stuff was very peculiar. So I had a going back very slightly in terms of we've been on this radio programme and we talked about the Hutchison Effect, and John had been on with us, and we discussed on air the things that I've just been going over with you, and we generally got a pretty positive audience reaction. In fact, one person called in after the first show, at the end of the first show, and said it was a revelation beyond revelations, and he thought it was that it trumped everything that he'd heard, and so we were very pleased about that, because we really didn't know how people were going to react to this sort of information. But only 6 hours after that show went out, a second show went out, we'd received an email from a chap called Ace Baker. Now, Ace Baker was already known to us in the Scholars Group because he'd done an analysis of some of the fake plane videos from 9/11, and he'd written this quite detailed analysis of what's called the Chopper 5 video. And the Chopper 5 video was a video of the second impact onto the World Trade Center tower, and Ace Baker had shown that this was a composite, some type of composite image that they put out on air, and it wasn't a real video. It wasn't a video of a real impact, and there was quite a lot of other evidence to say that this was actually correct, that this was a fake video. For example, you don't have a plane-shaped hole in a steel frame building. It's not physically possible, and this is because of Newton's third law, which says basically that to every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. In other words, if the plane hits the building at the quoted speed of 540 miles an hour, then the building hits the plane at 540 miles an hour. And as we all know that planes are made of light materials, they have to be to fly. And we've got these pictures of where there's been accidents at airport terminals where the plane has maybe been going about 10 miles an hour and it hasn't stopped early enough, and it's run into the terminal gate building, and the building is fine, but the plane is completely crushed in, because as we know it's just made of aluminium and a bit of carbon fibre, very, very light. So how can something like that cut through steel girders and make a plane-shaped hole with no debris bouncing off? We saw the tail didn't break off, we saw no debris falling from these videos. It doesn't make any sense. So anyway, so this Ace Baker chap, we suddenly got an email from him saying he was going to attempt to reproduce the Hutchison Effect in his own experiments, and he said he was going to get a Tesla coil on eBay, and he was going to do his own experiments. And we thought, okay, right, fine, fair enough. Well, I'm not sure quite what he's doing, but if he wants to try and do some experiments like John Hutchison has done over the last 30 years, then why shouldn't he, And then a few days later, I think it was about maybe 4 or 5 days later, something like that, we got another message from him saying, I've reproduced the Hutchison Effect, and I've made a video of it, and he posted it on YouTube. And sure enough, we saw this video that he'd made, and it was of a levitation effect with a little toy doll's house table flying up into the air. And he claimed to have reproduced this levitation effect. And he sent this around, and we all thought, well, I certainly thought at that time, I didn't know what his intention was, but the video didn't look particularly convincing to me. But I couldn't say it was a fake, because I didn't know the full circumstances under which it had been made. And about a week later, he admitted that indeed it was a fake video, he'd faked it, and he'd done a video overlay. And he got a split screen essentially where he had a cat walking around in the background, and then the other side of the screen he shot upside down, and he basically had something held on by a magnet, and then he released the magnet and the thing had fallen down, but because it was filmed upside down it appeared to levitate. So he explained how he did it,